We're going where you want to go so you can be where you need to be. It's Road Gang Radio with Lindsay, Lawler, and Jimmy Mack on RadioNemo.com.
RadioNemo.com is, of course, the place to be. We'll give you a preview of Trucking with Elida in a little bit here. Welcome back, as always. Good to see all of our friends over on the chat, chatting it up. A lot of really great well wishes for Lindsay, who joined us at the top of this hour. We're glad to have her as well, because without her, we don't have a life. She's what gives us a life over here. Well, it's the truth, actually. We kind of get into the nitty-gritty and the dirty details of trucking, and you remind everybody out there that it's important that for all the trials and tribulations and being over the road, that if you're not making connections both with the world around you and the people around you, making a lot of money doesn't make a lot of difference if there's nobody to share it with, nothing to enjoy with it, and no one to love with it. So, hey, good morning to you, and welcome back. Speaking of connections, you brought a wonderful friend along.
This book is all that this book is about. That is the heart and the soul and the core of this book. And our next guest, it's Mary Jo von Tillow, and I don't even know where I can get emotional even thinking about how to introduce this next guest. But her husband, Kurt von Tillow, was a truck driver. He was killed in the Vegas Route 91 Music Festival shooting, which it was back in 2017, which is crazy at this point. And her book came out yesterday. There's a chapter in it actually about myself. And I say that because every chapter, this book is less about the events of the shooting, which, by the way, to this day is still the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. And it's more about the connections that Mary Jo made along the way in the aftermath of this tragedy. She wrote this book along with another friend of ours who I met through her, Mark Gray. He's been a writer for People Magazine, Rolling Stone. They co-wrote this book together, and he's actually going to be on We Should Write in November. Mary Jo will be on the show as well at some point. But today, I want you to get to know Mary Jo even better for our audience, especially because she has the trucking tie with her husband. He was a small trucking company owner, and basically, so what happened, Jim? A quick overview of what happened here. Good morning, Mary Jo, by the way.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi, sweet friend. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So when the shooting happened, we all can probably remember where we were when this terrible day happened. And I immediately started reading the stories, and I saw that this one man was a truck driver. So I started, reaching out, trying to find out more about the family, and I gave it a little time. I think, if I remember right, maybe I probably wasn't of sound mind, but I also came at it from a very positive perspective, and I thought I just wanted to reach out. I wanted to be able to posthumously honor Kurt von Tillow as both a highway angel and a truck driver of the year. And Jim, what happened was I reached out to these families, say on social media. They didn't to this family. They didn't respond. I mean, rightfully so. I didn't really expect a response necessarily, but I did finally get a response from Deanne, who was Kurt's sister, and she said, "Listen, we've been bombarded by terrible people, by people preying on us, and we just wanted to do a little research and check if you were legit." And we ended up striking up this relationship. We finally convinced them. We flew the family here to Nashville. It was actually during a NASTIC conference, Jim, and to honor Kurt. And while sitting at lunch trying to break the ice, I just had this feeling that Kurt and I had this deeper connection. I didn't know why. And Mary just started talking. She said, and Kurt's birthday's coming up. And I instinctively knew. I was like, Kurt and I have the same birthday. I knew it. So I said, when is Kurt's birthday? And she said December 4th, which is my birthday. We all start crying and embracing, and something magical happened from then on out. And I was so honored. I got to they had me come out and sing at the memorial for Kurt while they were scattering the ashes in Tahoe. Anyway, so I want to talk about why this book, why not talk about the shooting and talk more about the connections of people that came through it. That's what we talk about so much on this show. So much to dive into here. But please make welcome to the show one of the kindest, most beautiful humans I've ever had the complete honor of knowing, Mary Jo von Tillow. Good morning.
Thank you, Lindsay. What an introduction. I'm not sure what I can say, but I appreciate you having me on the show. And this book has been underway for about 2 years. Mark Ray and I met at an event honoring the 58 people who lost their lives on October 1st, 2017. And he was doing an article at the time for Rolling Stone magazine. And he was interviewing family members and survivors at that 5-year mark. And he asked if I would speak with him. I was a little bit reluctant, but we ended up speaking as part of his article in Rolling Stone. And then about a year later, I decided, you know what, I really want to write a book about my experience. And I reached out to Mark and said, hey, could you do this with me? Mark was also at the concert at the night of the shooting as well. So I thought his experience was unique. I knew that he would take good care of my story, be respectful. So we met a couple of years ago and just started talking and thinking, can we do this book? What do we want the book to be about? And how do we want to approach it? And over those 2 years, it's evolved. And like you mentioned, it's out now. October 14th was the release date. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and really anywhere that you buy books, it's available.
And yes, and Audible. Yes, for truck drivers, it is available on Audible.
Yes, it is. Actually, that's how I listened to it. I was on a plane the other day, and I listened to it on Audible, and it was great. I loved it. I was bawling the whole time, so people around me are like, what is she listening to? But yes, it's amazing on Audible as well.
Mary Jo, good morning, by the way, and Jimmy Mack here. I just wanted to ask you in regards to kind of assembling this, because you know, it's one thing to kind of reassemble the event. It's another thing to kind of take the time to talk about the grace notes that come in the aftermath. And the idea of, as you begin to assemble it, were you actually surprised at the number of people that you felt you had to talk about? And I don't mean surprised in the sense of like, I didn't realize there were that many good people out there, but how many lives have touched you and how many lives you have touched? Did it ever seem overwhelming when you began to realize all the people in your life that have come into your life because of those days?
I wouldn't say overwhelming, but emotional. When I started thinking about the book and what I wanted to write about, I certainly could have talked about all the family members and the 58 that lost their lives. I've become good friends with parents, sisters, brothers. I could have easily had the book just be about that. But then when I really started thinking about it, there were people really early on after the shooting that reached out that didn't know me at all or my story at all and were so kind, and that's including Lindsay, Lawler. And so when I began to really think about it, the people that inspired me and really made me feel like I was going to be okay, and those were the people that I chose for the book. And such inspiring stories and tragic in their own way. The feeling I got from them, I will never forget. And like I said, I met most of them within a year of the shooting, and they were so inspiring and just made me feel like I'm going to be okay. My family is going to be okay. And maybe we could, make something of our lives even after this tragic event, because these people I met had certainly done that, and they were so inspiring to me along the way. So it wasn't overwhelming. It was really clear to me who those people were. And Mark and I started talking about that, and him and I agreed this is a set of people that should be part of the book. And actually, when we started the book, there's a couple events that happened after we started writing that are now part of the book as well. So, very inspiring.
I'm really curious. Obviously, this event changed your life. That's the obvious. And, you say this book isn't just about loss, but connection. I mean, it's called the Las Vegas Massacre Connections. And so what does that word connection mean to you now, Mary Jo, versus what it meant before October 1st, 2017? Because I feel like, sometimes in life we have these wake-up calls, and we would like to hope that we don't have to have the wake-up call, this tragic thing to shake us and make us more present. But sometimes that is what happens. Would you say that is something you feel like that happened from this, and that you're more aware of connection now post this event?
Absolutely. I'm a different person. what I've realized is everybody has a story, and given a chance, everybody wants to tell their story. And maybe I wasn't as good of a listener before. And now people I meet, I want to hear their story because I know they have one. Some are more compelling, more tragic, more interesting, but everybody does have a story. And I believe the change in me has really brought on connections that maybe in the past I really wouldn't have noticed or given time to. And connecting with people, as you mentioned at the start of the segment, is so important, and that's what makes life so much more interesting and brings so much more love into your life. And I think after the shooting and losing my caring, loving husband, it made me realize that it's all about connections, just the outpouring of love and support I got after October 1st and that my family received. It's changed us, and, it's made us really realize it's people in the world that are important, not your things or your status or your financial wealth. It's the connections you make with people.
I wanted to ask you another question because about connections in regards to not just those that you've encountered in this journey after those fateful days. One of the things that has happened to me after I've undergone some setbacks or lost somebody important to me in my life is I remind myself who is important in my life, who I haven't been connected to in a while. Has part of the process been about reconnecting, about, we drift away from people, we move through this life so quickly that often people who we said were important to us fade a little bit. Was there an opportunity? Did you feel like did people come back into your life that were important, who reestablished themselves, or did you go back and revisit people that maybe you hadn't been in contact with? It's okay if the answer is absolutely not, Jimmy Mack. But I think you're following what I'm saying here, correct?
I am. A combination of that. I'm one of 7 children, and I have 35 first cousins, and so I've always been connected to them, but we all, have busy lives. And, I moved from Southern California to Northern California. I traveled for my career. There's all kinds of things, raise my kids, and a lot goes with that. So when something tragic and so public like this happens, anybody is reaching out to you in one way or another. So yes, it reconnected me to people that I've known my whole life. It reconnected me with people that maybe I met 2 weeks before that. Everybody, I feel like, that I knew reached out to me after this happened, after they realized that it was Kurt von Tillow, my husband, that was one of the 58 that died. So yes, I've been very close with my family, including my kids. Jessica and Matthew were very close, my brothers and sisters and cousins and friends. Kurt and I lived in a community, Cameron Park Country Club, where we had 400 members and husbands and wives. So we had 800 people that were our immediate friends right there. Mm-hmm. And the outpouring from that community was just amazing. But yes, I really do feel like I reconnected and had opportunities to visit people, a lot of offers to come visit us here in the state, or let's do this together, or travel. And I was all for that. I really wasn't comfortable living in the home that Kurt and I lived in after the shooting. And yes, I said yes to everything. Why not? Let's travel here. Let's travel there. And it kept me busy and kept my mind off of the shooting and what had just happened to us.
I do love the economy of yes. Sometimes that there are times in our life where we just have to start saying yes to stuff to get ourselves back to where we want to be. I wanted to add something. Lindsay's got a question for you. You and I have something in common. I'm one of 5, but I'm also one of 32 grandchildren. So I completely understand what it's like to have an army of first cousins that I was raised with. I completely relate to that particular familial situation. So I get it. They all pop back into your life just when you need them sometimes. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Well, we want to point out again, the entire reason we're sitting here today is because Kurt was a truck driver. He was a very proud truck driver. And Jim, he was, I never got to meet Kurt personally, but through becoming such good friends with his family and hearing the stories over the years and seeing the pictures, I feel like I know him. And Jim, he's the guy that he is who we want as the spokesperson for trucking. He's that guy, you know what I mean? best dad.
The ambassador.
Oh my gosh, would be the ambassador of humanity, quite frankly. That's a fair statement, right, MJ?
Oh, of course. He loved being a truck driver. He loved the freedom of the road. Absolutely.
He did. And so, I'm curious how, a couple things, how you think Kurt's identity as a trucker shaped, because he was good time Charlie, but hard worker. He's who you wanted as your dad and your friend and your husband, all those things. How did his identity specifically as a truck driver shape who he was as a husband, a father, and a friend?
Kurt, he was a very simple but yet complicated person, right? He was a member of a country club, but yet was a truck driver. Mm-hmm. He just could relate to everybody at no matter what level, no matter what financial status, or no matter what their jobs. Kurt could relate to them, and he was very proud to be a truck driver. He was never afraid to say, "Oh, I drive a truck," or "I own a small trucking company." He was very proud of that. He was a proud American too, and I think trucking and patriotism go hand in hand as well. As a young kid, he was always interested in how things work, whether it's a mini bike or a bus driving by or a tractor. He was always very interested in seeing the wheels go round and how they worked. So it was no surprise to his family. He went to Wyotech to become a diesel mechanic, and then eventually started working on trucks and then drove trucks, and he was proud of that. And anybody that would listen, he would talk about his adventures on the road. It became hard for him once we had children. He stayed local for a while, but he did long-haul trucking as well, and he didn't like being away from his children, but he made the most of it when he was home. And if you ask Jessica and Matthew, was your dad gone a lot? They'd say, well, it seemed like he was at all of our events and he was always there. And he was just that type of guy that made that work. He made his children feel like he was there for them always, even if he was out on the road.
Jim, real quick, it reminds me, this is such the push and pull of trucking. It's why I wrote that song, He Loves the Road, because it's like, it's so hard when you have your loves back home, but your real love is also the road. And this is the ongoing theme of trucking. It's that push pull of, the road calls me, but home calls me. I mean, that has got to be such the biggest struggle for so many of our drivers, as it was for Kurt. And I just wanted to mention that, because I know a lot of people listening right now must be like, oh, I get it. I want to be on the road, and I also have to be on the road to make money. But man, I know I've got a softball game back home. Like it's a constant struggle. So I just wanted to bring that up, Jim, because that is our audience right there.
Yeah, and Mary Jo, the other thing is the fact that you said something that I just really connected with about the patriotism issue. And I've always kind of suspected that part of the patriotism of these drivers, many of them are kind of have that in their bones already before they hit the road. But I can't help but think it's because they see the scope, the size, the diversity, the joy, the life that is going on all throughout the country. And I was curious, you said that you started saying yes to traveling places and going places. And it's such an odd question, but have you found that your own love of this country has grown in the aftermath of this in regards to the people you've met and the places you've gone?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I did early on, there's a gentleman, Tommy Marr from Long Island, New York, who started doing random acts of kindness across the country, and he's part of the book. I didn't know who he was. I'd been hearing about him. He'd been posting things on Facebook using Kurt's name, and I was very, as Lindsay mentioned, suspicious of who's using his name, who's doing this, what's his motivation. But once I met Tommy, I realized the type of person he was and why he was doing this. But unfortunately, after Vegas, there was a lot of mass shootings, and he was traveling all over the country to honor those victims, not reach out to the families, but just to go to those cities, learn about them, and do acts of kindness in their name. And he asked me to join him. And that was such a healing, the most powerful experience that I had in the last 8 years. And just realizing there's people all over our country, but the the main component or fabric is our connection with each other and showing that empathy and compassion to one another. So yes, I traveled to places I had never been in honoring other mass shooting victims. So yes, my heart opened to that too.
Well, and I will tell you, rest easy, and know if you're listening, sweet Mary Jo, she is not only surviving, she's thriving. She has really made I believe, commitment to not letting grief define her. It's something that happened, but it is not who she is. And you can correct me if I'm wrong about that, Mary Jo, but there's this idea that grief changes shape over time. How's your understanding of strength maybe evolved from surviving to now? I'd say to surviving to sharing. You're at the place where you're out. This book is out now. The Las Vegas Massacre Connections. It is out anywhere you get books. So, and I can't encourage it enough to read, just to see how there's so much beauty in life. But so how has your understanding of strength and grief changed as you're now sharing this book?
It's hard, and I know there's people out there grieving, and people lose important people in their lives every day. When this happened to us, it was such a shock, and just something that you couldn't ever imagine happening, in your life. But pretty early on, I realized I don't want this to define us, but I want to use it as a platform to help other people. And so that has evolved. First and foremost, when it happened, I wanted to make sure my family was going to be okay. And I wanted to focus on them. I was a senior vice president with Bank of America, and I took a leave of absence to not only help myself and try to become whole. I was diagnosed with PTSD after what happened with the shooting. We had 6 family members there that night, and 3 of them were shot. My husband fatally, but my sister-in-law and niece were also shot. They recovered from their injuries. But first and foremost, I wanted to make sure we were all going to be okay, and I took that time to do that. And my approach after the shooting was very different than my children or any of my siblings or my sister-in-law and niece. And I was probably more vocal and more out there than the rest of them. And that wasn't always appreciated. I think my children were really uncomfortable with it, but I really felt it was important. And I felt like it was a choice. I made a choice not to have a pity party and lay in bed all day or feel sorry for myself. I wanted to go out there and travel and do things and talk about Kurt and talk about what happened to us and meet other people that had had that experience as well. And even joining Tommy Marr and the Honor Network, I wanted to do that. And not everybody understands that, but for me, that was my healing process, that I felt like I wanted to be vocal and I wanted to be out there. I just didn't want to hide away in my house in Cameron Park. I wanted to share. And as I began speaking at different events, people would come up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you so much for sharing your story. That's so inspiring for me because I'm going through this." And to me, that was the most rewarding thing about sharing my story. And now as it's evolved, I think the book represents all of that. These people inspired me, and I'm looking forward to it inspiring other people, because tragic things happen in this world. And, the events over the past month, every time there's a shooting, but even with the Charlie Kirk shooting, that touched me in a way that I never thought was possible. Kurt was very conservative in his politics. I'm not sure if he was aware of Charlie Kirk 8 years ago, but he was an avid Rush Limbaugh listener. And I know Charlie Kirk wanted to be the younger generation, Rush Limbaugh. So I thought about Kurt in today's world and how would Kurt have dealt with everything that's been happening. So, I think it's important that we're there for people, for each other, the connections that we make. I'm sure after this book, even after this segment of your show, people will learn about how to deal with their grief and how they may want to approach it, and maybe I can inspire them to do the same thing, or at least inspire them to know that everything's going to be okay.
I just want to kind of add too, there's a crossover moment. There are a lot of people who speak for themselves. often we find ourselves in a position where we speak for other people. And when people walk over to you at the end of an event and tell you how much what you said touched them and how much you were able to articulate sometimes the things that they're feeling, that becomes both liberating and a weight at the same time, I must imagine. The idea that you suddenly realize that when you give voice to your concerns and your cares, that you're actually voicing the concerns and cares of tens of thousands of other people, that you're carrying their concerns for, that the ability for you to kind of speak on a public platform isn't just for you, but it's for so many other people who don't have that. And you feel that, I can tell it, you feel that responsibility, correct?
I do. I'm not just for the 58 people who lost their lives, but I do feel like when I speak about grief or about losing somebody important to you, I know there's people around the world that are going through that, or if they haven't, they soon will. Everybody is touched by losing someone important to them. And I didn't first speak thinking that I could help other people. I first spoke because I didn't want my husband to be forgotten, or those other 57 souls that were lost that night. I didn't want them to be forgotten. This happened in Las Vegas, and it was a very public event and received a lot of publicity at first, but then it just went away. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure people did not forget October 1st and what happened. So that initially was my first motivation, is not to have Kurt forgotten. But what I realized is along the way is that I could inspire other people that may be going through some of the same things as me. And I never felt of it as a burden. I felt like if I had the opportunity to talk about Kurt and the other 57 souls, I'm going to do that. If someone wants to have me on their show or be in their book or podcast, every opportunity I had, I would gladly speak of that.
Mary Jo von Tillow, we have 1 minute left, and I can't end this interview without asking you if Kurt could see all that has come from his life, the connections, the book, the impact. What would Kurt say?
I think he'd be amazed. I think that he'd be shocked how much attention October 1st has gotten and how much we talk about him on a daily basis. I think he'd be really honored to know what he left us with, you know, his legacy of love. We use hashtag love like Kurt all the time. He was such a loving, caring person, and he left that with all of us. He made me a better person because of who he was, and he prepared me to deal with what I've had to deal with in the past 8 years, and his children too. We hug a little tighter. We say, I love you a little bit more. We listen a little bit better. We're all better people because of him, and I think he'd be so proud of that.
Well, I'm a better person because of Kurt as well. I'm humbled to know you and call you friend. So thank you for joining us, Mary Jo von Tillow. The book is The Las Vegas Massacre Connections. It's available anywhere you buy your books. Stream. It's also available on Audible. I love you so much, friend. Thank you for sharing your story. I hope you will come back on We Should Write so we can dive even deeper, because nobody knows about the healing power of writing better than you, Mary Jo.
Thank you so much. Love you too, Lindsay. I appreciate both of you. I appreciate the time to talk about Kurt.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
Love like Kurt, Jim. Love like Kurt.
Yes, please.
That's heavy lifting, but I'm up to the challenge. Thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you.